And I start the presentation this way. I said, originally, I thought I had 2 hours with you all. I've just been notified I have 10 minutes. What I was going to cover is something called the mental workout. There are 5 tools in the mental workout. I won't have time to cover all 5, but I will have time to cover 1. And I launch into the first tool of the mental workout, something called a centering breath. Now, there's a pillar about right here from where I'm standing, and on that pillar there sits a clock. And on that clock, I swear I can just hear every second ticking away. And I finished the first tool of the mental workout, the centering breath, and the clock screaming at me that I've been up here now for 8 minutes and I don't want to press my luck with Tony La Russa, so I ask if there are any questions. Now, you know that silence, it's worse than silence, the crickets chirping? That's what goes on, and to me feels like an eternity. And then thankfully, Dave Duncan, and this is, by the way, why I consider him greatest pitching coach of all time. Dave Duncan raises his hand and says, would you teach the second tool of the mental workout? And I look at Tony La Russa, and Tony gives me the nod, and so I move into the second tool of the mental workout, something called a performance statement. Performance statement for the players is really just having them specifically define what it is they're supposed to focus in competition. Focus is one of those words, if you look at the science, it's one of those words that gets thrown around often, and if you dig into it, you realize most people really don't know specifically what they're supposed to focus on. If that's the case, focus is irrelevant. And if you even look at the leadership, the head coach, the boss, telling the player or the employee to focus, oftentimes they don't even know what they're specifically asking the underling to focus on. With the players I work with, the players of St. Louis Cardinals, we are going to know specifically what to focus on during competition. And the performance statement is the 2 or 3 items that you will focus on during competition will cause you to play most optimally. So I finish working through the second tool of the mental workout, the performance statement. Again, I ask if there are any questions. Again, crickets chirping, silence. This time, thankfully, doesn't go on quite as long. And in the back corner of the room, our third baseman, Scott Rowland, raises his hand and says, would you teach the third tool of the mental workout? And again, I look at Tony La Russa, and Tony gives me the nod, and so I move into the third tool of the mental workout, something called a personal highlight reel. Personal highlight reel is really, we ask the players to spend 3 minutes a day visualizing themselves in competition, only focused on those 2 or 3 items from the performance statement, those things they're supposed to focus on. So a player spends 2 to 3 minutes a day visualizing themselves, only focused on those items from the performance statement, the things that will cause them to play most optimally. It takes focus from a pep talk and turns it into a very trained skill. It really gives our players an advantage in consistency. So I finished teaching the third tool, the personal highlight reel, and Chris Carpenter. Now again, Carpenter had just been awarded the 2005 Cy Young, which means in 2005 he's voted one of the top 2 pitchers in all of baseball. You can make an argument in 2005 that Carpenter is the single best pitcher in all of baseball, but nonetheless, he's one of the leaders on the team for all the right reasons. After I finished that third tool of the mental workout, the personal highlight reel, Carpenter stands up and maybe 4 or 5 steps forward, so he's closer to the center of the room, and he says these words: everybody better pay attention, because this is what it takes for us to take it to the next level. And I'm up front thinking, ball, right? So I have this rare good fortune, that very first day back in March of 2006, that Tony La Russa allows me to stay and finish the 2-hour presentation, all 5 tools of the mental workout, and then he asks if I would mind hanging around throughout the day, working individually with some of the players and coaches, and then he invites me back for a second day, and a third day, and a fourth day, and every day that week. And then I'm lucky enough that in 2006 I get to spend about 20 hours a week working individually with players and coaches. And in 2006, St. Louis Cardinals win their first World Series in a 24-year period of time. And then I'm lucky enough that the organization asked me back for 2007 and 2008 and 2009 and 2010 and 2011, in which time we win our second World Series in a 6-year period of time. Now, after that 2011 World Series win, I stepped down as director of sports psychology for the St. Louis Cardinals to pursue some other opportunities. But I start with you all this morning with a story of my time with the Cardinals for 2 reasons. Number one, I want to get anyone I can get to listen to me to know those 2 World Series, 100% me. Please tell anyone you can get to listen to you. Now, truth is, when I was with the team, I played a very small role. But I took that role very, very seriously. The real reason I start with all of you, story of my time with the St. Louis Cardinals, is I've got this really cool job. What I get to do on a daily basis is work with, literally, some of the most successful individuals and organizations on the planet. And what's really cool about my job is I'm always studying you folks. See, I'm always looking for those patterns of what causes the highly successful to be different, to be better than. And it didn't take long, my time with the St. Louis Cardinals, before one of those patterns started to emerge. In fact, it was before I even got to the first question break, that very first day on the job back in March 2006. I'm standing there in a room with all those individuals, and those athletes and coaches' names I mentioned, those are all likely Hall of Famers. That means they're literally the best in the world, and I'm standing in front of them, a complete nobody. Just trying to get a chance, fighting for an opportunity. And what I see 6 or 7 minutes in totally shocks me. I'm standing up there, and before I get to that first question break, I notice everyone in that room is taking notes. And you want to guess who's taking notes feverishly? That's right. Tony La Russa, man who knows more about baseball than anyone in that room combined. Now, I didn't know for sure what I was seeing when I was seeing it. I knew it was something special, but I didn't have the right language for it. It wasn't until a couple years later I was working with one of the best players in the NHL, and he had been for a while, and I asked him this question. I said, why? Why are you this good this long? Now, I'll never forget his response. He said, I have an obsession for improvement. And I thought, that's it. That's what I saw with the St. Louis Cardinals, first 6, 7, 8 minutes on the job, and consistently for the 6-year period I was with that team, that even though they were already the best in the world, they were always looking for a way to get a little bit better. All right, now, this is the real reason I start with story of my time with the Cardinals with all of you today. See, here's what I know. Every one of you in this room has a number of other places you could be right now. And I'm also guessing everybody in this room in the last week had more than a few really good reasons, really good excuses not to be here today. But you see, every single one of you is here. Even though you're already extremely successful. And what that indicates to me is that obsession for improvement.